record. Great, we are now recording as well. Brilliant. Hi Jill, thanks for joining us today.
That's all right.
Thank you for joining us. We're going to have a little chat with you about your day in the life and your Supermum story. But first of all, just for any of you watching who are kind of new to Supermums, just to give you a brief overview. Supermums, we started out in 2016, but now we've grown massively and we train over 260 mums and some super dads as well in Salesforce skills. We've got several courses and actually run courses out of Europe, out of the UK time zone, and also out of the Pacific time in the US. So we've got our administrator course, which you're going to hear a bit about from Jill today, as she's a graduate of the course. And we've also got a follow-on consultancy course and a marketing cloud course. And recently we've introduced some brilliant coaching as well to help you on your journey. We've got some great charities and companies involved. And actually that 91 figure, I think we've got over 100 volunteers now, actually, who support you as mentors on the programme. And perhaps Jill can share some information about that as well later on. So we do have loads of great companies that are involved in supporting what we do, whether that be sponsoring our course or working with us to provide you with work experience, which is also another great part of the administrator course that we'll be touching on a bit later. So thanks very much to St James's Place, who are the sponsor of our administrator course. And that is the course we're going to be focusing on today. So we've got Jill with us today. Hi, Jill.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us today. Do you want to just give a brief introduction to yourself, your name and where you are right now and what you're doing at the moment?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Jill. I live in a small town called Kronberg, which is actually just outside Frankfurt in Germany. And I work for a company called Cloud Consulting Group, which does Salesforce implementations for a range of different clients in different sectors, from finance to healthcare to nonprofit. My background and what I mainly work in is nonprofit implementations.
Okay, and what brought you to Salesforce? What started you off in this world of Salesforce that you're now in?
I guess, like many things in life, coincidence. In that a number of years ago, I was working for a charity in London, and they wanted to get up and running with Salesforce, and I was involved at that time in that implementation due to no background or anything, just being there at the time, and they needed someone to help out. And I suppose that was my then initial introduction to Salesforce. I soon after that left that job and didn't think about Salesforce for a number of years afterwards, until I found myself living in Germany after having 2 kids, wanting to change sector, and a bit confused and lost as to what to do with myself. And then someone told me about the Supermums course, and I felt, even if I don't pursue it, I just will feel good about myself if I sign on and get into something right now. So without too much thinking about it, I just signed on to the Supermums course and did it. And, you know, it's I've never really looked back.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And do you want to just tell us a little bit in brief before we dig back into your experience of the course, kind of what you're doing now? So that was kind of the before. So what is life kind of like now for you, the kind of day to day?
Sure, yeah. Well, I work on a number of different projects at any one time, and I am my job title is a Salesforce consultant. So I'm basically doing the configurations for clients. So we gather the requirements, we work with the clients, and then I suppose on every project team, we would have a project manager. We usually have a developer in case things get a bit more complex. And then we have, depending on the size of the project, of course, one or more Salesforce consultants like me that do the main bulk of the configuration. So that's what I'm mainly doing. So then that might include, on a daily basis, we work with the project management system Jira. So working through various tickets that I might have on various new configurations or change requests, or meetings with either my project teams or with customers to talk through either new requirements or to get feedback from testing, and progressing basically through projects like that. I'm working 100% from home at the moment. Since I used to, pre-corona, go into the office about once a week, but I've basically since starting been based primarily from home, with always the option to go in to the office whenever I want. My colleagues are based. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was. I mean, in many ways, it's ticked this job. I feel very lucky because it's ticked all the boxes of what I was looking for. Really, flexibility. I work part time, so I work 25 hours a week, so 5 hours a day, which is basically in the mornings. Pick up my kids at 3:00. But if something comes up, if a child is sick or if I have an appointment or whatever it is, nobody, and I just work in the evening instead, or I work at a different time instead. It's completely up to me. How I work my hours is completely up to me, really. So it's absolute flexibility. And yeah, I feel very fortunate to have that set up. It's been fantastic, really.
And how did, especially everything that, in general, that's great, but especially everything that's happened over the last few months.
Exactly, yeah.
Is really good. And how, I guess, want to talk a little bit about how you felt going into that role. Was that your first role after completing the Supermum's course? Did you go straight into that role?
I did, actually, yeah. So, I was a bit overwhelmed, I suppose. I've got no background in technology at all previous to this, so I suppose, and a lot of my colleagues would. I felt a little bit of maybe imposter syndrome at the beginning. Do I know enough for this? And yeah, I mean, I guess it does take a while to get confident, but I think it's also what I like about it is the continual learning. To be honest, it's a huge plus for about the whole area for me, is that it just never stops. I like kind of always working towards the next qualification and the next challenge. So it's on the one. Sorry, yeah, exactly. And so on the one hand, it's, yeah, of course, there's always moments. Even now, I mean, I've been in my role for nearly 2 years now, and even now, sometimes something comes up, and my initial feeling is, oh no, I'm too overwhelmed. But then it's always, you start working on it, you take it piece by piece, you break it down, and you always find a way. Because I think the thing about Salesforce is there's so many different learning forums and ways of be that Trailhead or through other forums. There's just always a way of learning, of teaching yourself. It's and of others to help you learn. So I mean, you can always find the way forward.
Yeah. And I think that is, it's kind of an important point to bring up. And we always talk to people, especially when they're coming on the admin course, to think of it as just the beginning of kind of a learning journey, and also not to think that, yes, we're going to teach you a lot so that you can pass the exam and get your first job, but it's not like you're going to come out knowing everything. It's about understanding how to go and then find the information and do the investigative piece, so you know where to look for the answers more than anything.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing about a huge part of it, really, is because nobody actually, it doesn't matter how long you've been working in Salesforce, nobody knows all the answers. And that's actually, I think, a very key part of becoming more confident in it, is realizing that even colleagues who've been doing it for years, they don't know all the answers. But the people who are best at this are the ones who know where to go looking for the answers.
Yes, exactly.
So that's, it's a key part.
When people are trying to think, could this be right for me, I think it's nice to talk about that idea. If you like learning, if you like problem solving, they're the kind of, are there any other things you would recommend, if people like one thing they might like in Salesforce?
Well, I mean, for me, I suppose, it's problem solving and it's continual learning and new challenges. For me, it's also I find it quite concrete, in that you have a plan, you have a list of things that you want to implement. You work on those, and at the end you see a very tangible result.
Yeah.
And then it works. When you automate something and then you see it working, I find that incredibly satisfying. I mean, and maybe that's clearly not something for everyone. That's not something that makes everyone excited. But for me, I love that sort of thing. And I love that concrete outcome at the end, that, okay, I planned this, then I implemented it, and then I tested it, and look, it worked.
And I think the human side of that is like, it's helping people do their jobs day to day. Generally, you're there to help someone else, make their life a bit easier in the way they do their work day to day, whether that be giving them figures or making processes that work really easy for them as well. So even if it isn't that technical bit that it works, that is kind of the bit that excites you, that element of the human side of it as well, I think is there too, in kind of making, because I think some people worry about the side of it. Is it does it involve lots of working with people as well? Whereas I think people can think that this kind of role doesn't, but actually you do need to communicate with people every day. What you're trying to do is provide them with a solution, right? That is going to.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's got a lot of the working with people. For example, I think what you just said is a lot of it is about making maybe what were previously very cumbersome processes more efficient, and a lot of it is I suppose encouraging people to really think through their existing processes, why they do things in a certain way. Is it necessary, or is it just something that developed, as many processes do, just through a kind of a series of, this is the system they had at the time and that kind of fit best. But so I think I'm also, I suppose, quite interested in the whole change management side of things, and encouraging people and working with people, because it can obviously be a very difficult process, to really look at processes and look at how they do things, and maybe look at the why, and that's all part of this. That's like planning a Salesforce implementation. It absolutely requires looking carefully at existing processes and existing ways of operating, and the communication around that is key, because people can be very defensive, not defensive, but people obviously understandably want to justify or protect the things that they've put in place in the workplace, and they have good reason to do so. So I think the communication around, okay, do we need to change something, or is how things are running, is it fine, or does it make sense to make some changes here, is really important.
And that's where I think it's important to think about all the transferable skills you may bring from a previous life or a previous role. Like you said, you've never worked in technology specifically before, but have ended up working in this Salesforce role now. Is there anything like you can think of, or that happens day to day, that you think, wow, I'm really using some of my skills or my transferable skills or knowledge from my previous role in this new area?
No, absolutely. So my entire experience before this was working in the nonprofit sector. And I did want, and it was important to me when changing into something new, to maintain some connection with that sector. But and so what I like about it is I still do have that connection with that sector, but it's one of the things I often find difficult working in the nonprofit sector was, I suppose, many small organizations just simply don't have the resources or the time to put into things like managing processes, change management, and really reflecting on the systems around the organization. And I suppose what I do feel I bring into this is an understanding of, I suppose, what often limitations in that sector are. I think it can be quite hard for people who come from a pure technology background to put themselves in the shoes of people working in these very small, understaffed, under-resourced organizations, and what they are facing on a day-to-day, and maybe how overworked they are already, and how many different things that they're juggling. So I feel I bring in a whole kind of wealth of experience of being in that exact situation myself and trying to manage these various challenges, trying to keep the whole, the organization moving forward, while, looking at the whole administrative side of things, and basically just trying to do many things at the same time, with limited resources. And so, yeah, I think that's been a big benefit, that I have some understanding of that side of things.
I do say almost, your experience is specifically in the not-for-profit world, but Salesforce is used across so many different industries that there's almost always going to be something, no matter what industry you've worked in, that you're gonna bring to the table that you could then be going and working in that industry. And your background and your experience, say, as if you've been working in sales, for example, is going to help you understand how a user might use the Sales Cloud, and that's going to put you in a really strong position to be a good administrator. So we definitely say think about those transferable skills that you've got from your current or previous careers, because you're going to be able to bring them to the table, and they're going to be really important as well. And that is what's going to help you get the jobs afterwards. So let's talk a little bit about getting the job itself. Actually, how did you feel about, like, for example, an interview? Had you been for many, like your first Salesforce interview? What was it like, and how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I was quite lucky in that I relatively soon after finishing this course, I found this job. But yeah, of course, I think I had done one interview. This job was a second interview I did. And yeah, as I said, of course, coming from a different sector and not having previous, apart from the work experience I had through the Supermums course, but not having previous work experience in the whole Salesforce sphere. Yeah, I was nervous and not sure if I could talk the talk. Not sure if I could be a convincing candidate. But I was also very fortunate in that I think it was a time, and it's still a time in Germany, where there's a demand for people with Salesforce skills, and I think that's the case in many countries, really. So even though I wasn't hugely experienced, I had at that point my admin qualification, and I had the Supermums course behind me. Yeah. And that together was all, and I suppose the little bit, which was very minimal really, of experience I'd had with working with Salesforce many years ago. But just that together already made me, more experienced than many other candidates that were out there, because there is a skill set that's very much in demand. So I think, once you have that Supermums course behind you and the bit of work experience that course offers, it already gives you a huge advantage, to be honest. And maybe you don't recognize that initially. You think, oh no, I'm not good enough. But it's when you then compare yourself to many other candidates who don't even have that, I think it is a huge thing.
And then let's talk a little bit about the work experience, actually, because that is a part of the course. So you did the course February 2018. You said you started the course, and then towards the end of the course, you have this opportunity to do a work experience placement, which I think is really good, as you say, not only to be able to say to employers, but just for your own confidence as well. I think to be able to put some stuff into practice. How did you find the project, and kind of that initial thing of actually going to start working on a live org?
Yeah, I think initially I found it quite terrifying doing anything in an actual real life org, afraid of touching anything and that I would cause damage. And I think the first time you work, you go from working just in developer editions to working in a real live org. You are very nervous because you're thinking, if I mess up this, then I could be messing up other people's work or anything, and you're very nervous. And I think that's why that work experience part of the course is so crucial, to kind of get over those initial fears and just get confident doing basic tasks, even like be that creating fields and whatever, making small changes in real orgs, and just knowing, okay, it's it's not so different from doing it in a developer edition. I can do this in a real life situation. So yeah, I think it really helps.
Project manager as well, right? So you have a project manager who's kind of leading you on exactly what to do. So you're not like you're left on your own to do anything.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I was working with Kate, who I don't know if she's still with Supermoms, but she was great. She was very supportive, really supportive. Yeah, I suppose at the start I felt a bit useless. I mean, and probably was a bit useless, but it's all just part of the learning. And she was a very supportive project manager and really helped to facilitate my learning at that time.
And you've said that you've really enjoyed that learning journey, and it definitely is a journey. I think even from the beginning of the admin course through to the end, I think at the beginning of the course, sometimes you get started with it and you're really keen, and then you realize how much there is to learn, and you're like, oh my goodness, there's so much. But then you realize that you can do it and your confidence starts to build again. And you've continued that learning journey by getting some more certifications, haven't you? So do you want to tell us a bit about what you've done since finishing Supermums and getting your admin cert?
Yes. So I initially got my admin cert. That was before I started in my current role. And then the first one I got in my current role was the nonprofit cloud consultant, because I really, that was very important to me to stay focused on this that area. And then I did after that the sales cloud, and I do now also I don't work exclusively in the nonprofit sector. I do some normal sales cloud implementations as well. And so I think the sales cloud is a very good basic next qualification to get. Yeah. So I did that, and then I did the Lightning App Builder, which again is sort of an extension of many of the things you would do for the admin qualification. So that was, again, it just felt like
do that one quite quickly, and now because it's much of the same content.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not so difficult. Like a lot of the knowledge you have from the admin cert is still there and still relevant, and you just expand on that a bit. And then the one the qualification I did most recently was the Service Cloud, which is probably the one I found most challenging. Actually, it's definitely what I found most challenging, purely because I had no. I was sort of doing it a bit blind. I actually still don't have any concrete work experience with Service Cloud, but it's an area that kind of interested me, and I would like to then work on some more Service Cloud implementation. So I just studied. I always use Focus on Force for my studying, and so I'm quite pleased to have done that qualification.
Yeah, really well done, continuing your learning and staying motivated. That's really good. So I guess just two final things to sort of wrap up, I think. Firstly, what's next for you in your Salesforce career, do you think?
Well, what's next for me? Well, first, I'm actually going on maternity leave again, because I've got a baby due in a couple of months. But then I've had this idea for quite a while that I would like to learn some coding. And so that's definitely on my to-do list. So I was kind of hoping I would get a bit further with that in 2020, but a certain pandemic has kind of messed up with that a bit. But I did do an initial course with the organization called Rad Women, an intro to coding course, which I really loved. And I really, it's something I really want to develop my skills in that area further. And then hopefully do the Platform Developer 1. So that is definitely the next certification I have my eyes on. I cannot say right now how long it's going to take, but that's where I'm aiming.
And I think this is the benefit of Salesforce, right? To talk a little bit about that aspect of, right, you're going off on maternity leave, you don't really know what's going to happen, we've got the pandemic to deal with as well, but you've still got this opportunity to, it's still there to take in your own time, and you can learn at your own pace, and you can still keep progressing, if you want to, and be excited about it. And just because you're going off on maternity leave for a few months, that's not going to massively hinder anything.
Exactly. And I think that's I'm hoping during my maternity leave, before I go back to work, to have my Platform Developer 1. So you see it like that. And I mean, I did the Sales Supermums course, and the initial admin qualification also when my daughter was quite small, and I was carrying a lot of the webinars. I was like carrying my daughter on my shoulder and bobbing her around the room and stuff, and just and listening as well. So I mean, so yes, it is absolutely possible. It's you just have to take your time and I suppose not push yourself too hard, and I can just know what's possible, what's not possible. But you can absolutely.
There's lots of nice paths and steps where you can feel like you're progressing and you can excel that if you've got time and you're ready, or you can, take it in your own time. So you still feel like you're making progress, but not necessarily at 100 miles an hour.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's also quite a satisfying thing, because when you maybe, whatever it is, if you're taking career break, or if you're home looking after kids and babies, you can be looking for an outlet to use different parts of your brain, and this is an excellent way of doing that if this is something that appeals, because you don't have to overburden yourself. You can just take it in little chunks. You can do a few modules on Trailhead or something, and feel like you've come a step further, and just decide yourself what are the chunks that I can manage in a week, or and I think in that way it's you do feel okay. I'm taking I'm looking after a baby or whatever it is, but I'm also finding time to use these other parts of my brain that I don't want to shrivel too much.
Yeah. Oh, great. Well, my final question then to come to is, what would you say to anyone who is thinking about kind of getting into Salesforce, whether that be through the admin course, or, what would you say to them about getting into Salesforce and training with Supermum?
I mean, absolutely encourage them to. I went into it not knowing if this was something I was going to really pursue or not, but just wanted to give it a go. And that's the thing, you can just give it a go. And there's, but also, has opened up. I was really stuck in terms of knowing I really wanted to get back to work, but I really didn't know what to do. And I have to say, if I look back a couple of years now, sometimes I can't believe it, that I found exactly the role I wanted that fits so well into my lifestyle at the moment. So it's just really helped me come further, and in all of that helped me feel like so much more comfortable with my current life, that I can manage the childcare and yet have a fulfilling work life as well. And I find that extremely satisfying. So I would say go for it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks so much for your time today. Good luck with your coding ambitions and with the
Thank you. Thank you very much.
In another year and see where you're at.
Yeah, great. Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.